everyone. Welcome back to the Be More podcast, where we inspire you to be more of every role within the Salesforce, Slack, MuleSoft, and Tableau ecosystems. For today's session, we are discussing what it takes to be more neurodiversity ally. I'm joined today by Paul. So would you be able to kick off by introducing yourself to our audience, please?
I'm Paul Ginsberg. I used to be a Salesforce nonprofit consultant, and literally at the point, literally about now, I'm not taking on any new clients, but I have been in the ecosystem for 13 years, and I am still a consultant, but only for my existing clients, because I'm now an ADHD coach. And there is a link between the two, which is that technology isn't so much the hard part, but dealing with the humans that use and decide and design the system is the fun stuff, at least for me. So that took me down a path about being more aware of my own neurodivergency and other things, and neurodiversity as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, I look forward to diving into that and exploring what that means, because obviously it's going to be different for different people, for sure. My life in Salesforce will be a lot easier without users. So I don't know how I feel about that. Like, people are important. I mean, yeah, people are important. But
the hardest part in any project. So I went to Czech Dreaming many years ago about a $10 million project. And this talk did not cover the technology at all.
Yeah.
And I was just like, because I work with small businesses, and they said, well, actually, yeah, I went up. It's like, it's actually the humans the hard part, and they're like, so
Yeah.
we might not want to deal with humans, but since it's humans that are using the systems we design, we don't have a choice. Therefore, if we get better at it, our lives become easier.
Yeah.
So I think I think it's worth the investment.
Yeah. Well, I'm not fully convinced, but we'll kind of move on from now. So, thinking about this now, right? Explain to our audience, what does it mean to be neurodiverse?
Okay, so the language is changing and has changed on this. So everyone is neurodiverse. That diversity. So it actually contains two different elements: neurotypical, which is 80% of the population, and then neurodivergent, which is the other 20%. Now, I personally think that the 80% are quite well catered for. The neurodivergent typically includes ADHD, autism, gifted, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, and Tourette. So if you fall into any of those, the people that fall into those categories have a significantly different physical mind. Like, the connections in the mind are different. Some of the some of the bits within the brain are smaller or larger. And that's what the neurodivergence is. It's that diverges from the normal. But just to go back to neurodiversity, when neurodiversity was coined as a phrase, no one thought about the typical people. So that's why sometimes people still get that phrase wrong, thinking that neurodiversity is specific, is like looking after these smaller groups. No, that's neurodivergency.
Right. Okay.
So it's a technical difference, but since I operate in the sphere, I certainly need to know it. But when people do say neurodiverse, you're aware that they're trying to be more open-minded, and that's a wonderful start.
Okay. Great. And what do you think it means to be an ally?
So, I'm going to say it's an ally like any other sort of ally, like a queer ally or something like that. It's to be a supporter, not necessarily to have the ideas. It's just to be there to amplify the voices of the minority group so that they can be heard. Being an ally, you're supporting that minority group, and you're just typically you're learning about it as well at the same time. That's what being an ally is, just being a supporter.
Okay.
You don't have to know everything. That's not the point of being an ally. It's coming in with an open mindset.
Well, nobody knows everything anyway, right?
Absolutely.
How does, and this is kind of where we dive into your kind of personal experiences, really. How does being neurodiverse aware, like, how does that influence your interactions with others?
Okay, this is the really cool stuff, because this is where we add the benefit. We've got a different perspective. So very simply, that when groupthink is likely, we aren't thinking the same thought patterns. Like, for instance, for those that hear this won't work quite so well, but there's a covering in the background. This could be a covering on top of a box, or it could be a covering on top of a bed. But it's that kind of saying, actually, these things that everyone else is making assumptions on, or it could be something inflatable, who knows? But the assumptions that everyone's making can be just assumptions. Have you tried something out of the box? Have you tried a different perspective? Are we even answering the wrong question? Because everyone's saying, oh, we need to get to this answer and this is the deadline. And you're going, well, why is it the deadline? So, like, for instance, I was reading a book recently, people who are dyslexic may not be able to read as easily, but they come up with more creative solutions. Their visual awareness is often, I'm going to say normally, maybe I'm misquoting the book, it's heightened. So they can do the spatial thinking much better. So they might be better at designing planes, for instance. Might not be able to ride a book, but might be able to design a plane. It's a very different skill. And so those skills benefit. So when you're designing systems, that might mean that you're making different connections and everyone's going, well, this needs to be linked to that. You're going, actually, we need to use this other product. Or actually, the architecture is all wrong. It's not the most efficient architecture because you're going to run into this problem down the line.
Yeah. What tips, advice would you give to those looking to become more neurodiverse ally?
Okay. So what I would say is you need to listen. You need to listen to those who self-identify as being neurodivergent. It's not for you to go in and say these are solutions, because that's removing our voice. We have the lived experience, and that lived experience is unique. The science isn't there yet. Literally 10 years ago, it was thought you couldn't be autistic and have ADHD. You could have one or the other, but not both. Blue. They haven't met me.
Exhibit A. Yeah.
Exhibit A. So there isn't even a right answer, but also everyone is really unique and individual. And so lived experience, different genetics, different circumstances activate different parts of our brain. So anyone that's neurodivergent, you can't get someone else coming in and saying, this is the solution for you, because all of we are very unique. So in work circumstance, the question is, what accommodations would help you? So by being an ally, it's all going to be specific. You might have some, you might want to, to have you considered, but normally most people have considered these things quite a long time, because you don't get to the stage of defining yourself as neurodivergent. No one wakes up and goes, oh, I want to be neurodivergent. I want to be an outlier in society. These aren't things we opt for. We might come to a place of being happy with it or accepting of it, but it's not necessarily something we don't always want to choose the hard path. I mean, I do, but that. So yeah. So the way to be an ally is to listen and to help amplify the voices of those who are divergent, but equally not to take the voices from those who are neurodivergent. So it means if there isn't a space, or someone's not creating the space, then you can help create that space. But it's not for you to go in and dominate. That's not.
No. Okay. And something else I'm kind of taking from that as well, kind of in between the lines, is also not your place to assume that this person's experiences will be the same as somebody else's.
Absolutely, 100%. Every neurodivergent person is really unique for 20,000 reasons, basically. It's not like, are you wearing a red t-shirt or a black t-shirt? There are so many different grey colours. It's not an on-off. It's not binary. It's depends on your age. There's just so many differences going on. Depends on where you are on your personal journey, on your normal life journey as well. So everyone has different needs at different times. So what it is also that there's kind of a spiky profile. So there's a group of people So it's a bell-shaped curve. There's a group of people in the middle who fit within a certain profile,
Right.
doing certain activities and other things. But on both sides of that bell-shaped curve, there's a minority who are radically different from the normal, because that's kind of how it works. It's a very sharp distribution curve. But so when I say normal people, I mean within certain bounds. And there's all sorts of different words within the neurodiversity community, the neurodiverse community, to talk about normal people. But I just reference it as the people that aren't neurodivergent. But also there's other people with different lived experiences. I think this adds to the richness of the world. We move away from thinking that this one size fits all approach, and that isn't true. And I believe it's called the curbside effect, where you make a change for one group of people and it benefits everyone. So think of subtitles on TV. Like, actually, lots of people watch subtitles on TV these days, but they were only put in for people who are hard of hearing. So this means that when you can't understand the accents, or when you're tired, or when everyone else is being quiet around you, you can still benefit from it. Or the other one is drop curbs on streets, so that you can push your wheel. For you and I, when we're off to Dreamforce, we can push our wheelie trolley without having to lift it. Everyone benefits, even though it is for a particular group of users. To empower one group on this occasion, I think everyone benefits.
Spoiler alert, but I'm definitely one of those people that likes to watch TV with subtitles all the time. So my friends really hate it, but I like it in case I've missed something or not picked up on something. The subtitles is usually a little bit delayed, so I can like lean on it being delayed and then figure out and maybe laugh, I don't know, 10 seconds later than everyone else because I finally got it. But yeah, I can certainly relate to both of those things, especially if I've got a trolley of swag or something at Dreamforce. Like,
It's the swag.
yeah,
Always
you
the
know,
swag.
always the swag. Yeah. If only Einstein came with his own trolley, it'd be a lot much easier. But anyway, moving on to the next bit. Thinking about you and your own kind of journey, kind of framing it a little bit as your own neurodiverse awareness journey, right? And that's going to be a living, breathing thing. It's going to be evolving every day and changing. However, if you were doing that again, what would you change or do differently, do you think?
Well, that where we are now as society is far better than when it was. I'm going to talk in general terms. There's not much I could have done. I've gone on a journey,
Yeah.
therapy, talking it through with other people, to have understand and come to a place of forgiving myself, because that's a perfectionism. Oh, if I only had done this, or only if I'd done that. That's not true. I did what felt right at the time for the circumstances and the information I had then. But I think it's a moment that we can celebrate how far the world has come. So, for instance, I think in the last 77 years, there were 3 studies done on Black women and girls with ADHD. And now there's more studies into this. We're more aware. The original studies for ADHD, because that's my main, a chunk of my neurodivergency, were all done by white middle class men on white middle class boys. So there's so many women out there who just weren't diagnosed because sitting demure, looking out of a window because they were distracted by the 10,000 thought processes going on in their brains, was absolutely fine at school because they're not expected to get good results. They just want them to be quiet and demure and not get in the way. And we have come so far as a society to recognize that women have ADHD as well as men to similar proportions, but it's really underdiagnosed. So, and for me, there's a journey of forgiveness. It's like the grief cycle. I mean, this isn't quite the question you asked, but I'm going
You're
to,
going to give me the answer.
I'm going to give you the answer anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm leaning into my autism because I want to give this answer. But when we become aware that we don't get the cards when we're born saying, these are your labels. And these are only labels. These help with Googling the symptoms. They're
Yeah.
nothing more and nothing less. Okay, they're tools. Okay? They don't define who I am. They're useful, but they don't actually define who I am. But when we're born, we aren't given these cards, and then we're not fitting into society. And that causes us bruises. So when you get someone that does eventually realize that they're neurodivergent, you have to forgive the earlier person for not realizing it, and the people around them for also not realizing it. And that's really, really important. So all you can do is say, I am glad that I am where I am now. And that's a really powerful statement. It's like, I have more knowledge than I did previously, so I can make, I'm going to say healthier choices. Maybe I should thought it through with it. There's but I can now lean into my abilities, which, sometimes we try to deny those abilities, or they were just wasted. Like, my example, and it's not a very IT example, is PE. So physical education, as it was back in my day, I think they rename it every few years. But when I was at primary school, there were hurdles. Now, to jump over, we're running down the track, jumping over hurdles. My PE teacher spotted this. She didn't know I had dyspraxia, and just let me run in the lane without the hurdles. Now, what the benefit was that no ambulance was called. That I wasn't faster than anyone else. I ran down the lane, but I wasn't jumping over anything. And the point being that I can then focus my energies not on recovering from an operation, but on doing other useful things with my time that I might actually enjoy and be successful at. And so that actually this is me verbally processing and thinking it out, because I tend to talk my thoughts through, but it comes to an interesting point. So the point is that focus on, if I could go back and tell myself something, which I think goes to the heart of that question, is focus on what you're good at. Don't waste, if you're not good at something, like, give it a try, but don't waste all your time on it. You can have 20 successes in the same time that you can get a 2% improvement on something you're just not very good at.
Yeah.
So your tool is yourself. Use the right tool for the right job. If it ain't working, sometimes it's time to give up on it and focus on something that you can really excel at. If you don't know what you can excel at, keep on trying, keep on experimenting in different areas. Have fun while you're doing it.
Yeah. And be kind to yourself while you're doing it as well.
God, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's the self-compassion part.
Yeah, well, I certainly would never ever embrace hurdles during PE, that's for sure. I better embrace the bleep test.
But that's an example of something that's working well for 50% of people. And therefore they go, oh, everyone must do it because it works for this group. And it's like, that's just not me. That's not my group. And you go and excel at it and you be fantastic at it.
What skills attributes does it take to be a neurodiversity ally? What kind of key things would you draw out in response to this question? Curiosity, maybe?
Curiosity. So I'll take it from my coaching course, which is actually a sense of wonder.
Okay.
Bizarrely. And I think that is a useful skill to have at any point in your life, to go in with an open mind and appreciate the beauty. And that actually sparks interest and means that you can then, your heart will then navigate to the right places to do it. So you've got to question yourself why you want to be an ally. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. If you're doing it for social justice, awesome. If you're doing it because you're angry at something, retune and refocus that. Because I think there are some movements where people move in and they're not always they don't always end up in the right place. And I think that's because the wrong things are pushing them. So I'm not saying that people, look, the Salesforce ecosystem is the most wonderful ecosystem on the planet. It's certainly a really good ecosystem. So I think that people do come in with good intentions. But if you're going in with it because you want it to look good on your CV, that's the wrong intention. If you're doing it to support other people, that's the right intention. So you need to be honest with yourself. Going in with the right intention helps you. And yeah. But I did mention about Salesforce ecosystem. Weirdly, that's the first time we've mentioned that, although both of us live in the heart of the
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
And like it's been my best friend for like when I went to the London Admin User Group 2014 or so, I walked in and found that actually so I'm creating my own question and there'll be an answer. But I walked in and I just sensed it was a safe space for me to practice being a Salesforce geek,
Yeah.
and there wouldn't be any judgment. And that's what being an ally is. It's just creating that space where you can feel welcome and safe. You don't have to call it out. You just accept people as they are. Um, but the ecosystem, I think, is actually full of neurodivergent friendly types, and is got an exceptionally diverse community. And that's rich. It brings colour to the landscape. It's not an entire surprise, actually. If you think about IT, that will get. I tried to look for the statistics. I would completely fail to find
Yeah.
decent ones, but that will get more autistic types. But for the consultant, it'll get so more autistic types for the development work, the coding, I would say, because it's very detailed. But for the consultants, there's lots of challenges and things are changing all the time. That's really exciting for an ADHD person because they live on, because we often, not all of us, live on that excitement and interest and variety. So it really keeps the brain fresh. And then if we look at the top of the ecosystem, we've got Mark Benioff, who has said that they've got ADHD. At least I hope they said they've got ADHD. 99% sure. And so it might be dyslexia. It's something. Fairly sure it's ADHD. But the point is that from day one, it's been a friendly place where like-minded people can meet. So that's why, although the stats say roughly 20% of the population might be neurodivergent, you might find slightly higher elements in certain fields within the Salesforce ecosystem. Don't be surprised. Just enjoy it and have a laugh.
Yeah, totally. And I think the Salesforce ecosystem is certainly different in this regard. Like a couple of episodes ago, I was talking about the neurodiverse Trailblazer community group that's recently been created and is a virtual group where you could meet and talk about neurodiversity in Salesforce. I can pretty much guarantee that there isn't any other ecosystems doing this within the tech world that are kind of having that open door approach and having that conversation and making sure everyone is included. Um, that's certainly really important for me as well. So I think
Yeah.
that's great.
And it's also worth noting that the criteria keeps on changing. And so there's an uptick at the moment because the most recent criteria change was in 2013, where it was recognised that you could have both autism and ADHD. And I can't remember when females were allowed to have ADHD. At some point, females were allowed to have ADHD. But take that 2013 date, add 5 years for the medics to all go through their training. 2018 onwards is when you see much greater awareness in social media. So that's what's brought on this whole greater mind.
Right.
I'm going to say
Yeah.
greater mindset, greater awareness, because
Mm-hmm.
we are part of that exciting change now. And given the times, it's really nice that positive things can be happening, and it's healthy to remember
Yeah.
the positive things that are happening.
Yeah, there's certainly things happening that aren't positive. So yeah, it's always great to think about the good things and be reminded of those allies that are out there already and exist and supporting people, because that is important too. So now you have an opportunity to kind of demyth something or clarify something that people think, okay, being neurodiverse is this, or being neurodiverse ally is this, like a common misconception. Is there anything that comes to mind that you'd like to kind of clarify for our audience, confirm?
Yeah, I mentioned it before. That basically you don't get if you've met one ADHD, you've met one ADHD.
Yeah.
That's as simple as I can put it, because we are all so very, very different. Just like every other human is different, we are all different, and we have different brains which are interacting with different things. Actually, it's quite curious, and this is a random aside almost. Like my brain likes random asides. Often with a a divergent person, if they've got one type of neurodivergency, they might have a second or third type as well. So it's like a supermarket shop. You go in and you aim to get just the ADHD, but hey, someone's also put the dyspraxia in the supermarket trolley as well. It's like, yeah, can I get rid of this? It's like, no, you get the discount if you get both of them. And it's like,
Yeah.
thanks. So not often someone will have more than one. It's not that they're being greedy. It's just that's the way that the dice was rolled, and that's what they've got. It's not so well understood at the moment why that is, but that's the empirical evidence on it.
So we're now wrapping up today's session, but before we do go, how can people connect with you? And are there any particular pieces of content, resources, materials that would help them on their own journey, perhaps, to be a neurodiversity ally?
Been thinking about it during this conversation. If you want to be an ally, there's times and places.
Right. Yeah.
So sometimes, just like other forms of socializing, honestly, sometimes neurodivergent types will just want to be with other neurodivergent types. Sometimes they'll want to go wider and be with allies, and sometimes they'll want to go wider still and be with absolutely everyone. Sometimes neurodivergent people don't want to be with other neurodivergent people, and sometimes they do. So there's a real mix going on. It's just like, I'm going to go back to the Dreamforce heart is, sometimes you want to be alone.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to be with your close friends, and sometimes you want to be with random people to see what happens.
Yeah.
And again, doesn't quite lead from the question you asked, but is the information that I think useful to give. How can people learn more? By asking questions, not 20 questions in one go. Or say, is it okay if we talk about it? You can only ask, and people can go yes or no, to ask permission. I love podcasts. Some are really great and have doctors and people that actually know what they're talking about, and some have less qualified people. It's a bit of a minefield, but it's but it's a good minefield. For instance, I like the ADHD Adults UK podcast. That works well for me. And there's also another podcast called the Neurodiversity podcast. But there's lots out there. Instagram, YouTube, all the social media channels are all good fun. If anyone says with 100% certainty this is ADHD, that's the only clue to walk on past. Because anyone who says 100% this is what it is, that's not the lived experience. We are so diverse within our community that even the ADHD, there's medical definitions, no one has everything. Fact. So that's your red flag to walk on by. If you like reading blogs about this sort of thing, if you go to naturallyiq.com and click on the blog button, there's this wonderful author, Paul Ginsberg, who was writing about diversity matters before he was aware that he really fell face flat into this category. I was writing about exam accommodations and doing things differently and networking before I even had a name for it. But now I write a lot about neurodiversity matters, obviously concentrating on ADHD because that's the area I've decided to specialize in. I'm also on LinkedIn. Of course, if you look up the name Paul Ginsberg, you can follow me there. And I'm on Blue Sky because that's quite healthy. There's a social media platform called Blue Sky, and I find that's a very healthy place with less negativity than certain other social media platforms. But also, Tom, thank you for being such an ally and wanting to learn more. It's hugely appreciated. I always enjoy our chats anyway, but thank you for giving me this opportunity, and thank you to everyone that made the time to listen.
Yeah,
because
it's important.
Also you're doing the right thing. However, that's a form of allyship. You're demonstrating. You're already demonstrating what you wish to achieve. So well done and thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for your time, and hopefully we'll inspire some more allies. We've got some more allies in the making listening to this, so that's win-win, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks again.